Om Shri Sai Ram, offering our most humble and loving salutations at the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan, Sri Satya Sai Baba. Dear brothers and sisters, this is yet again an opportunity for us to delve deep into the divine life and make an attempt to learn the precious gems which our Lord has given us. Today, we are venturing into yet another most sacred and an important aspect of Ram Katha or Sai Katha, that is Rama Gita. So we'll look into this whole thing as we continue. So please join me for the prayer, and I request all of you, let us start this occasion with our prayer. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to Thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for Thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with Thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts, let them be in tune with Thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for Thee. Sai Ram. Om Shri Sai Ram. Till here, our story continued when Ram finished his education and went on for a tour of the India and came back, and he was kind of alone and he didn't want to interact with anybody, and we saw the beautiful concept of udasinta, and that udasinta in which the Lord, usually the avatars, make a transition from one aspect of their Leela life to another. And that transition happened, and which, in Ram's case, or with every other case, was a declaration of the great truth which they not only represented, but they lived and they have come to teach us. And this aspect, let me bring in my brother Raju here so we can join the discussion. Raju?
Sai Ram brother.
Sai Ram, Raju, brother, Sai Ram. So, brother Raju, we were looking at the story till now. We have reached, and now we have come to a stage wherein the Udasinta phase has to get over, and the next transition, which the Ram himself is opening up to the world and letting them have a glimpse of what he's made up of and what is he all about. So I just thought, let me tell the story first a little bit about when Ram was in that state, and he was kind of secluded in a way. Like we have heard about, you can tell about Bhagwan also. He also was, after the scorpion bite instance, he remained quite secluded for almost 6 months. And many attempts were made by the parents, by gurus, everybody to intervene and find out. But when nothing worked, then Vashisht was invited by Ram, by Dashrath, and he said, "Help, find out what is happening to Ram." Because even of all that, there is a kind of, you can call it Maya or whatever, and the parents are a little worried, and obviously, and Guru comes. He listens to all of this, and he closes his eyes, and he realizes the truth of Ram. And this is a very beautiful thing which Bhagavan keeps pointing out to us that whenever they call Vashisht and Vashisht has to answer something, he would close his eyes and through his divine eyes, he would be able to see the truth and then he will carry on. So it's Swami didn't have to do that. He would tell immediately. But Vashisht needed to connect within, find out what is happening. And that is where he smiles and he says, nothing is wrong with Ram. And Ram perfectly fine. And you don't have to worry about it. But father being father, they were all little worried, parents. And so Vashisht says, okay, I will go and meet Ram. So he sends word for all the brothers. When the uh, instruction reaches them, all the four brothers are sitting together, it seems, and three of them get up. And Ram, looking at the brothers, he also joins them. So he indicatively, it seems, somebody writes it very beautifully. Indicatively, it shows that he's not too keen in justifying himself, but he follows the protocol and he goes to Ram, to Vashisht. And there, Vashisht, it seems, Vashisht says to Ram that Ram, do you realize that there are so many people are like confused and they are worried about you and wants to know what is the reason. Has anything disturbed you, perturbed you, or anything has gone wrong that you have become like that? And Ram actually asks this question, Vashisht inquire, and Ram turns back at the sage and Guru, and very openly he questions Guru in certain way. And let me share this, the question which Ram poses, because Vashisht says that, hey Ram, you have parents, you have family, you have people who are worried about you, and you just can't be, secluded. So please tell. And Ram says these questions, Master, you speak of mother, but who exactly is mother? Who exactly is son? Why? What exactly is body? And what is the GV? Is this objective world real? Or is the supreme soul real? So, this is a question which Ram poses to Vashisht. And Bhagwan describes it so beautifully that the way Ram is questioning, it is more like posing, giving Vashisht a kind of glimpse into the reality rather than a question posed to get the answers. All of us who have been with Bhagwan would agree that he would ask questions not to get an answer, but to make us realize that how little we know and how much we are supposed to know. So he will ask you a question that means we don't know the answer and we need to know further. And that is the which Ram poses this question. And the proof of that remains that the moment Vashisht hears him, he goes in a trance. By listening to these questions and this kind of articulation by Ram, Vashisht goes in trance and he leaves that premise without even meeting Dashrath because he wants to hold that sanctity, that beauty of feeling with him. So he doesn't even talk to anybody, he leaves. And Dashrath gets more surprised. Like, what happened to you? No, you disappeared without telling me what interactions you had. And Vashisht was in bliss. So 2 days he doesn't, one full day he does not revert, and then he comes back again to Ram, to Dashrath, and he says to Dashrath that you are unnecessarily worrying about Ram, but since you have asked, so call Ram here in the court. And then Ram and all brothers are invited into the court, And when Ram comes, it seems again he questions, Ram, please explain. And that is where Ram says, Paramatma, Jivatma, and Prakriti. What is the interrelationship between these? Are these three one? Are they distinct entities? If one, how did they become three and for what purpose? What is the unifying principle underlying these? What benefit is gained by recognizing them as different, giving up the cognition of the unity? Now, Raju, it's very interesting. At 16, I don't think he was 16 also at that time. Yeah, he was around 14, 15, he must be. A 15-year-old
Yes.
year old child, like posing such questions. People can interpret or misinterpret this in many ways, but look at the way Avatar had to disclose himself. And as we have discussed before, that Ram had his own maryada to keep himself in the human boundaries because of Ravan's pledge. So he had to keep that boundary of maryada of being a human always alive. But within that boundary, Ram gives a glimpse through these dialogues as he's moving into the next phase of his avatarhood. And I'm sure Bhagwan also had the similar style when he came out of it, and we have seen that how he went through the pin episode and all that, and then he went silent, and then came Manas Bhajare Guru Charanam and the letter to his brother, right, Raju?
Yes, brother.
So,
Yes.
so take us through that, like a little comparative study of Bhagwan through these questions. Ram has posed these beautiful questions, and what prompts you now? What makes you think about Swami now?
Yes, brother. Yeah. In fact, we should also be ruminating over this fact that uh, what was the context that Rama chose to pose these questions. Unfortunately, there are, as we had discussed earlier, there are many misinterpretations regarding this conversation between Rama and Valmiki. People misinterpret that it was actually a confused mind of Rama. Rama was kind of confused and hence he poses these questions. But when we look from the way in which Swami looks at avatars, I don't think Rama was confused at all. It is not for Rama, as you have said beautifully, it is not for Rama to know the question, answers, but he was indirectly asking us to reflect upon these. He was setting the platform for being an avatar, for people to accept him as an avatar. Uh, Similar questions were also posed by Swami when the scorpion bite happens. He also poses similar questions. They call him, what happened? They wake him up. Then they ask him what happened. Where is uh, the scorpion that bit you? He says, what is this body? Where is uh, God? Is not everything the same? All that we see around is only one. Why all these differences? So they when they recollect these interactions, the immediate family that was around Swami, they write it off as mere ramblings of a mind which was stunned by the sting of the scorpion. Very similar comparison to what many people talk about Rama, but that actually was setting the platform. In fact, those are the moments when the avatar is deeply pushing us to reflect upon our own realities. And there is a nice instance which I just got to know this afternoon. In fact, where how Swami during the avatar declaration phase, when the one of the boys who was with Swami that time, he was being interviewed by our Radio Sai brothers, and he had shared this instance, first-hand experience. He was a witness to that entire episode as to how that avatar revelation happened. So the four kids were walking to school. Amongst those four was Swami and other three. And as they approached the school, in fact, that morning, Swami was showing off the pin, the collar pin that he was gifted by the Hanmantrao, by the vehicle inspector of Hampi to his this boy's parents. So Swami would call these boys' parents as Amma and Aya, because they kind of feed Swami regularly. They were very fond of Swami just because he was their son's classmate. And Swami was also very endearing personality. So that morning, just before leaving to school, he shows off the pin to everyone, saying that, see, look at how beautiful my pin is. Is it good? Is it good? In fact, then he shows that to his mother, and mother says, "You are a very special kid. Vehicle inspector has given you." And then Swami very critically he tells her, "But this pin is going to go away." She doesn't understand what Swami is referring to. And then Swami walks to the school along with these kids, four kids. As they approach the school, this person, he vividly and beautifully describes that at one point the the pin begins to it appears as if it is trying to fly away from Swami's shirt. These boys are seeing, looking at Swami's shirt. It's like, fluttering. And once it happens, they mistake it to be some wind blowing. Second time it happens. Third time, literally tears away the uniform and flies away. The pin just flies away, doesn't disappear. And these boys are stunned looking at the incident that has happened. And then they catch hold of Satya and says, "Satya, what happened? Satyam, what happened?" Satyam does not respond. He looks at all of them and says, "Satyam, the pin has gone. Satyam has gone. I am Baba." That's it. He doesn't respond to any other calling. Then he runs, and the kids follow Satya to the episode, and all of us know how that entire thing has happened. But the point is, remember where Swami was saying that the Maya left the avatar like a collar pin. In fact, he wrote a song also where he says, "Maya
Yeah,
left, it flew away like a collar pin." And from then on, Satya is Sai. Similar is what even we see the happening with Ramachandra. Just like a pin that disappeared, Vasishtha comes, he asks Rama, and he realizes, and Vasishtha just walks away. Like the pin that walked away without answering anyone, here it is Vasishtha who just walks away, just rushes himself out of the court, leaving the king himself, emperor. Yeah, Vasishtha was known to be very obedient master. I mean, we cannot say it, but he was very obedient to the royal court. He would always oblige the request of the king. But in spite of all those restrictions, he just dashes off when Rama asks these questions. That is when the real realize that the real Ramachandra from the boy, the kid Rama has now woken up. And the questions that Rama poses are very similar to the questions even when Swami also poses to the teacher. When the teacher holds Swami's hand and he says, "Where are you going?" So Swami threw the books, and then Swami sings that famous poem, "Nenu Sai Tenyum Nikkamuga." He tells him that I am Sai, realize, and nobody can hold me, nobody can stop me from my mission. The teacher holds his arm and says, "Where are you going, little Satya? Where are you going?" And he looks at him and says, where am I going? Who are you? Who am I? Who is Jivi? Who is Paramatma?" And he walks and sits on that boulder. It is very similar. I think probably we are not aware of how Krishna revealed the transition, but I think it will be something similar. It's almost like a template that the avatar follows, appears like the transitioning from the human face to the divine face. And we see the same thing happening even with Ramachandra. Rama beautifully transitions himself into the normal man, the normal human, to the divine being that he is.
excellent. So the story continues. I just wanted to clarify that what we considered a long time as Rama Gita was actually not truly a Rama Gita. And this is a Vashisht Gita's portion that we are talking about, and I'll just sketch the story for everybody. When the discussion is happening and the Ram is posing these questions, and again the evening gets over, so it seems this process was still going on when our Lord Vishwamitra appears in the scene. And this is a time when Vishwamitra enters the court. And people think that it is a very auspicious time that such a great rishi has come. So Dashrath goes himself to receive. And it's a very beautiful protocol that they have shown. Swami has written also that Dashrath himself with his ministers goes at the gate of the our his kingdom to receive Vishwamitra, and there he washes his feet and welcomes him with lot of respect. Eh, I'm just reminded of the way Swami has taught us how to receive. So it's like a Purna Kumbham and Vedam and all that happens. So imagine this was a protocol done for such people, and he was invited. And when he comes home, then the king asks him, "So what brings you here, O Rishi? How can I serve you?" And that is where the Vishwamitra starts that question, that inquiry that, hey, I have this issue and I have come to ask for two sons of yours, Ram and Lakshman. And I want them to come with me and relieve me of this tension of Rakshasas troubling us. Then we know the story how Dashrath actually first uh, doesn't agree, or he tries to change request Vishwamitra to change his request. He does a lot of things. He argues and he counters, but nothing works. And in fact, Vishwamitra is very stubborn on it that he wants Ram or nothing. And they have a that time it was a lot of importance given to the word. So when Vishwamitra comes and Dashrath says, "I'm for you, tell me." So he says, "Now you have given me your word and still you're going back. So what is the point, Vishwamitra, Dashrath?" And Vishwamitra goes to that extent in teasing Dashrath that if you can't, then I'm going back. And that time, sage Vashisht intervenes, Dashrath, and supports the arguments of Vishwamitra. Dashrath, in fact, offers that he said, "I will come myself with all my army and protect your yajna. But my children are very young, they are still in teens. They don't know much." But Vishwamitra counters him. But at that time, Vishwamitra presents the case to Vasisht presents the case to Vishwamitra, and he says, "There is an issue here with Ram. They are all brothers have become secluded. They are not talking, and when you talk to them, they give you such a response." And Vishwamitra very boldly gets up and he says, "You all are behaving in a very childish and a immature manner. You don't know what Ram is. You don't know what is his caliber. He is the supreme Lord." So I feel reading that Ram Katha, I felt that is the first time when somebody has openly declared Ram to be an avatar. So Vishwamitra says that he is divine and you are doing a mistake by considering him as a mere child and your son or anything like that. And then Vishwamitra commands, he says, "Please bring Ram to the court." And as he is requesting and as he's saying, and Dashrath turns towards Sumatra to, okay, bring Ram to the court, they find Ram with brothers entering the court. And this is where the whole scene starts. And Vishwamitra Ram, and then Vishwamitra questions Ram. And when he does that, then again Ram starts to talk. And Bhagwan Ram's, Sri Ram's, that conversation is also mostly a question kind of the talk. So what the Vashisht has done, the Vashisht Gita, they are divided into almost seven prakarans, they call it chapters. And the first prakaran is called Vairagya Prakaran. And in that Vairagya Prakaran is the questions which is asked by Ram. And this is the starting of Vashisht Gita. So in Vashisht Gita, Ram portion of conversation, which is in the form of mostly in the form of questions and a slight glimpses into the answer, is captured under this section called Vairagya Prakaran. This is a very beautiful prakaran for all of us because we can learn it. We can even take these attributes, these as an attribute of an aspirant. So, what we have found that Ram, in the beginning of his life, when he starts this journey as an avatar, if I may say so, he gave straight away the milestones or the attribute what is expected of an aspirant.
Yes, brother. And brother, just to add before we jump into the attributes, a very interesting point that we had discussed was if we look at the Gitas as such, in Ramayana and in the famous ones that all of us know, there are supposed to be around 286 odd Gitas, but the ones that are well known are Vasishtha Gita, then Ashtavakra Gita, then Rama Gita, and Bhagavad Gita. If we take these four and just do a comparison, Vasishtha Gita was Vasishtha and it was between Vasishtha and Ramachandra. Ashtavakra Gita was between Ashtavakra and Janaka. Rama Gita was between Rama and Lakshmana. And Krishna Gita, Bhagavad Gita, is between Krishna and Arjuna. Now, if you look at the interactions that have actually spanned between these characters, the way in which these Gitas are delivered is very different depending upon the student and upon the teacher. As is the level of the student, so is the level of Gita. So Rama is now setting the stage as this Gita would exemplify as an student who is evolving, whose mind or a human whose mind is opening up into the truths of spiritual life. And how would that interaction be between an evolved master and a mind which apparently is opening to the spiritual truths of life? That is where Rama Gita, Vasishtha Gita comes. Now, this same Ramachandra, who apparently is now the one who is questioning, apparently is a student here. The entire Ramayana, by the end of Ramayana, the roles reverse, and this student becomes the teacher, Rama, and there the student is Lakshmana. Now, Lakshmana is asking Rama, and if we look at the volume between Vasishtha Gita and Rama Gita, Vasishtha Gita, while it spans across like seven sargas, as brother just mentioned, and so many shlokas, so much voluminous content, Rama Gita just completes in 67 to 68 verses. Rama finishes the entire essence in 68 to 69 verses and he completes it because that is the mental maturity of Lakshmana. Similar is the state with Krishna finishing Bhagavad Gita in few slokas, which later were elaborated by Veda Vyasa. But if we compare with our Vastavakra and Dasharatha, there are no preludes. So, for example, here Rama is setting a prelude, Rama is asking questions, then Vasishtha is attempting to explain. Lakshmana there also asks a question, then Rama explains. But look at Ashtavakra Gita, it just sets off into a very different plane where Ashtavakra takes Janaka to the high level and he expounds the great truths of life. Now, our Sanatana Dharma is so rich that it uses these characters, if I may use the word, and teaches to all of us that depending upon the context, depending upon your mental maturity, depending upon your stage of life, which Gita you should be adopting. And Rama Gita is given by someone of Ramachandra's caliber, God himself, to someone like Lakshmana who has surrendered completely to God. Krishna Gita or Bhagavad Gita is given by Lord again himself, but who is lost in a dual mind. And here we are dealing about Vasishtha Gita, where Lord himself is acting as a student and he is apparently hooking, using these questions as hooks to elicit answers from a humanly group. And we should, I think, when we even look at these questions, we should, unfortunately, many of the commenters and as Swami says, Yugadharma Paddatil Vigalita Mayunda Nayamargamna Tippi Nadapu Koraku. With the flow of time, the interpretations of scriptures have lost their relevance. And he says, I have come to re-establish the correct meaning of the scriptures. Unfortunately, many of these discussions between Rama and Vasishtha are celebrated as a ramblings of a confused mind and the answers of an enlightened master. It is not. We cannot look at Rama as someone who is confused. No, Rama is
Raju, I
just
think, yeah, Raju, I think we should also clarify to think that when is Rama Gita happened? Actually, this portion is called Vasishtha Gita, and at the kind of at the end of you can say the Rama's phase, when Ram asks Lakshman to drop Sita mother in the forest, and Lakshman drops her there and comes back. So when he returns to Ayodhya and his brother is gone back into seclusion. He's very silent all the time. He doesn't interact much. He lives a very simple life. So Lakshman takes that as an opportunity to interact. And he says, how to engage the master, how to engage brother. Because if you have to engage Swami also, we needed to think about such discussions. You can't engage him with lighter notes. So Lakshman goes and poses certain questions that how do I sanctify my life? What is the secret of life? What is the way to sanctify and find fulfillment? And there Ram starts talking. So that part, that discourse of Ram is called Rama Gita. Raju, you mentioned very nicely that I really love it. That it all depends on the guru and the shishya. Who are you talking to? So, as Bhagavan has explained to us, that Bhagavad Gita of Krishna was delivered by Krishna to Arjuna in 20 minutes
yes,
in the field of Mahabharata war. And Bhagavan said there was no time. So, Bhagavan Krishna, Pishachini language, it's a different phonetics, Pishachini language to communicate with Arjun. Why? Because he says it can be spoken fast. So it is fast spoken, it is crisp, so you can use it. So he says he used Pishachini language to communicate Bhagavad Gita to Arjun. Now imagine 20 minutes discussion. If we literally took that discussion, I'm sure it would not be anything less heavier than uh, Ashtavakra Gita or anything like that, because
yes,
it is such a consolidated sponge talk. So I feel well when other Rama Gitas happened, and Gita is described in a very beautiful way. Gita is nothing but an explanation or an insight into Atma Gyan. So any knowledge about Atma Gyan is Gita, and those who have already realized, those who are one with them, can deliver Atma Gyan. So those are considered Gita, and so many people, like you mentioned, in Rama's time, four people had already given Gitas. So we have four Gitas in Rama's time itself. So we have Ashtavakra, we have um, Vashishta, we have Ramagita,
Janak,
and we have Janak, right?
yes,
Yeah, Janak Gita. So we have four Gitas there. So imagine when it came to Krishna's time, thanks to Vyas, sage Veda Vyas, he took that complicated one and he made it into 18 chapter for our convenience. So I would say he was a great script writer. Veda Vyas was a great script writer. What a story fiction. He not only sketched the whole Mahabharata in front of us, but he captured the story and put it in the lifestyle that we can understand what is bhakti, what is karma, what is sankhya, all that he taught. So it was Vedavyas who did that. And now take the same analogy of yours to Bhagwan. In 1984 it was, right? When Swami said, Bhagwan Krishna gave to one Arjun, I am going to give you all of you Bhagavad Gita. And our Lord spent almost a month every day discourses on Bhagavad Gita. So the level of his students are very dull. So where it was done in 20 minutes, our Lord took 1 month to deliver. And if you read Sai Baba Gita, it is very relevant, it is very modern and easy. Obviously, because he has not used any Sanskrit shlokas and all that. He has given a commentary, but he has quoted Bhagavad Gita and all that. But it is a new version of the same Atmagyan, how he has taken us. And I would say he is a mixture of Vedavyas and Krishna together, because he not only gave us the crux, he gave us in a in Vedavyas manner, describing it in a very a story manner. So this was a very beautiful thing, which I am reminded, how Bhagwan has taken. So Ramagita happened, and I hopefully will discuss that later in proper Ramagita section. But here, the the Vairagi Prakaran, the attributes which we are calling it as a attributes of an aspirant, it is worth looking at, and I would like you to let's jump into it. So the first thing, can you imagine the first thing which Ram talks about or questions when people tell him that Ram, you are young, you are this, you are that, so you must, you know, engage yourself into certain activities. And Ram vehemently talks about it: aversion to the world, detachment, and disinterest. This is a very powerful sentence. Uh, I find that the whole, as an aspirant to start off, this becomes one of the major thought. But aversion word always creates confusion. So Raju, please let's open this, share the discussion on that. Share your thoughts
Yes,
on
brother.
this.
And yeah, I think Rama was very compassionate Lord, uh, that he chose, in the guise of asking, in the disguise of asking these questions, he actually gave these 7 pointers for a sadhaka. These are the attributes that every sadhaka should exhibit. And the first one is aversion to the world. It is, unfortunately, it is not that Rama is experiencing aversion. No, for him, everything is just divine. And it is for us, for the sadhaka, that the first step is we are disgusted, if we can use the word, to the world, and that creates detachment and disinterest. And brother, would you share that funny incident that you had experienced as students in the drama, which is a very potent incident, which apparently appears very funny, but there's a deep meaning related to it. There was a drama which one of the brothers had put up as a lady
Oh,
character.
okay. Uh, well, that happened in our college days. We had prepared a drama, just to attract Swami's attention and bring him to the college. And he came to watch that drama. In that, the basic theme of the drama was that a boy falls in love with a girl, and he revolts against his parents, and ultimately he realizes his mistake of going against, kind of, and then they get, how the drama ends is different. So it is, that phase is there. So one of the boy had become a girl, obviously. And being a informal drama in the college setting, in a hostel setting, there was not lot in those days. There was not a lot of makeup and decorations done. So a boy had literally, put a little lipstick or something like that, and a sari around him. So Swami came to see the drama, and it was very fun. Everybody enjoyed it. So Swami Bhagwan blessed everybody after the drama, and he went. Next day evening, we were in darshan, and Bhagwan called the main hero of the drama, and he called him and very seriously Just, how are you? He said, Swami, I'm fine. By your grace. He said, is your health okay? He said, yes, Swami. So he was surprised, like, why Swami is inquiring about his health like that. He says, is your eyesight okay? He said, yes, Swami. Can you see properly? He said, yes, Swami. So, and none of us could understand like what Bhagwan is actually trying to, uh, reach at. And very sweetly he said, how could you, Ra, then get attracted to that girl? She's so ugly. He said, she's so ugly. I saw her and I could not sleep the whole night. How could you love her? How could you go against your parents for her? And we are all laughing because some was like, he made a joke out of it. So it is funny that, how Bhagwan can use. But as you
Yes,
said, it's very important that Bhagwan never says anything for the, just for the sake of, even if you are really beautiful,
I think that is
that
where Swami is
aversion.
using that entire character of that girl to teach us a lesson. I think, as Swami says, this Prakriti is that nature, and unfortunately, as Swami asked that boy, that is your vision proper? Are you able to see? I think that is for each one of us. We are unfortunately not able to see the disfigured aspect of what is pulling us towards it, the nature, but the Lord, being the Lord, the creator, he knows the nature of the creation that he has created through and through. So he is in fact forcing us to look deeply, and that is where Rama is talking about that aversion. That probably, I think, what we should develop is that perception that allows us to see the reality as it is. And there is one quote which Swami says that a point there should come a point in your life where, just like one who is fed up to his neck, just like the way he loathes the food, he loathes another morsel, even though it is of shed ruchis, even though it is of royal menu and best of the cuisines and best of the check would have cooked it, but he loathes it. He just can't tolerate even another morsel. That is the same way that you should have uh, the loath feeling, or the feeling of aversion towards the world. That is when the first step into vairagya begins. And that is what is Rama subtly, beautifully is indicating.
See, people may think about how do we develop aversion or what is the need for aversion. Aversion has a negative connotation for many of the normal talking. But as a beginner, as a spiritual aspirant, it is now mentioned. Now we have to really think about it. That it is supposed to be a prerequisite. And what is this aversion coming from? Where is it coming from, and why is it required? And if you really think about it properly, the aversion point is when what you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to be in the environment, and anything outside that environment, when it tries to influence you, you have to get rid of it. And unless you have the aversion, that aversion is that point of saturation in which you don't even want to stare at it, you want to see it. And that is the state only when you can preserve your. So, for example, if you are in a brahmacharya ashram as a student, as an aspirant, and and if you engage yourself or allow yourself to be influenced or looked into from grahastha point of view or from any other, even sannyasa point of view, then you won't be able to fulfill the proper obligations of a brahmacharya. You won't be able to derive and deliver all that what is required of us during that phase of life. So when you want to be a good brahmacharya, so the starting fact is that aversion towards other areas. That okay, don't. It is not for me. And I tell you, Raju, I'm sure you all must have experienced it. Bhagwan used to be very, very strict about it, like how we walk from hostel to mandir. Remember? So, like when you're walking, he has in fact caught us many times reading a billboard. So, can you imagine walking on the street? So, I everybody will today tell about what is the big deal about it. When you're walking, you will see a billboard and you will read it. You will see a picture, you will see a movie. But Bhagwan's expectation was that because we are student life, and when you're walking from mandir, hostel to mandir, your focus should be on the road, not on anything else. And for that, he even went up to an extent of showing us how to walk on the street, how
Yes,
your head should be straight, how your body should be straight, and how your eyes should be at an angle. So he went on to show us that also, that how one should walk with grace and beauty, but not read the billboards while walking, not get attracted towards the advertisement and other things. So imagine that, unless you create an aversion towards that other influence, you may allow yourself the little leniency or little liberty of reading it, of allowing yourself to fall in that prey. And that is what Bhagwan was also very, very particular, that you should not, you cannot do that. Isn't that, like, it sometimes
yes,
is mind boggling to see how Bhagwan has integrated these small, small things into our lifestyle, which at that time we felt it was a bit harsh or a bit tough. But today, when you analyze it after going through these scriptures, how simplified he had made it for us, how easy he has made it for us to understand, to comprehend, and take it from there. What do you say?
absolutely. Absolutely. I think uh, there cannot be a greater guru than the Lord Himself. And I remember once when Swami had taken us to Chennai, he sent us to a mall to buy a gift for our parents and to take back as tokens of being with Swami. So all of us went around, the nine boys went around the mall. And when we came back, Swami was asking each one of us about the mall, about our feedback and what we bought. I remember one of the brothers telling Swami that Swami, so much materialistic pleasure all around us, Swami. So much materialism, so much materialistic pleasure. He repeated it twice. Swami looked at him and said, Aite, so? He said, but Swami, I have realized one thing that that, that there is so much attraction all around, and it is very tough to stay away from being attracted. And Swami looked at him deeply and said, in spite of all that attracts you, can it give the same joy that this is showing his body, that this attraction, that this divine attraction gives? He said, no, Swami. That is fleeting joy. This is permanent joy. I very clearly recollect this instance, and why all of us folded our palms and Swami said, permanent joy. Divine, being with divine is permanent joy. Being with world is temporary joy. I think Rama is asking us to develop that perception that this is fleeting, this will move away anytime, this will not last long. But what is it that is permanent? That is what I should seek out to.
Beautiful. Okay, let's look at the next one. And here he says, temporal nature of the world, Jagat. And in fact, Ram is very much insisting that every time he looks at it and says, how can you love this world? How can you be attracted or attached to this world, which is so temporal, which is fleeting? How can you? So he's actually asking a question in a very surprised manner, like how can you be that foolish to fall in attraction or love or with this kind of world, which is not even there the next moment. So that is the temporal nature, and Bhagwan has explained this in a very, very many beautiful illustration. Tell us the story about your picture taking, sir,
Yes, brother. In fact, Swami was that's a famous picture where we would see Swami posing Anil Kumar sir on one side of the car and Swami on the other side of the car. They were posing, and in fact, when Swami was posing with the car, so one one boy would take the other side position and he would pose and the photo would be clicked and the boy would go away and the boy would take his place. So the uh, photo session continues and three boys go away and then Swami says, Swami is showing himself. It says Brahma Satyam because he's standing there. Jagat Mithya Jivo Devo Sanatana. He says Brahma alone is eternal because it is Satyam. He is eternal. But Jiva comes and goes. See, like one boy comes and he goes. Another boy comes and he goes. But Jivo Deva Sanatana. And that Jiva is in fact, if you realize, is actually he is the Sanatana. He is the one who has been there since immemorial times. Swami used that instance to drive home such a powerful lesson, and the way in which Swami taught us, I'm sure this incident, this teaching has repeated many times, where Swami would pose, would allow boys to pose with him when Swami is seated on the chair, and boy would come, he would sit for the photograph, the photo will be clicked, and another boy would come. Again, Swami would repeat the same sentence. It gets ingrained in our memory that, oh my God, Lord alone is permanent. All that we see around is just temporal nature. It comes and it goes. That's why it is gat, gat, which takes birth and which disappears, takes birth and disappears.
see, you can't help but admire Bhagwan's persistence, right? He goes on
Absolutely.
giving the same lesson year after year, day after day. The same stories have happened to all of our batches, I would say. When he would come to take pictures in hostel with boys, class wise. So he was sitting there and each class would come and take picture and go, take picture and go. And he would say the same sentence. Chudu, I am the constant and you all are Jagat, Jagat, Jagat. So he would use anything to convey and teach us this lesson. So if I have to really think about it, Raju, Gita, even though he formally delivered in 1 month, but he was teaching us every day.
Yes.
Because for him, everything was connected to Atma. I'll tell you a funny part. Once I was showing Swami my professional work, and he was blessing me, and I was doing some sales training in those days. So I had created a value based sales model, and I was sharing that with Bhagwan for his blessing. And Bhagwan blessed it very nicely. And just before I could wind up, Swami said, Chudu, dekho, whenever you teach anything you teach, always bring Atman. Let people think about Atma. So at that time, I was thinking, like, Swami, I'm talking sales here. Now, how do I bring Atma into hardcore sales? I couldn't say anything. And I didn't know how. But after decade of working, and now I've realized that anything I talk, he has and justify. So in a very beautiful way, he has trained and taught us there is nothing in this world, there is nothing in this whole equation which is devoid or deprived of the concept of Atma. So everything is Gita for him. He can pick up gymnastics and teach Gita there also. He can pick up drama and teach Gita there. He can teach, he can dance and teach Gita there. He can do Narayan Seva and teach. So for him, every act reflected that Atma Gyan, the Atma Siddhi. That is the beauty of our Bhagavan, isn't it?
Yes, brother, absolutely. In fact, I remember one of my one of my classmates was distributing prasadam, sweets, to everyone, and he was not looking at their faces. So the hands would stretch out. He was bending his head, and every hand that stretches out, he was placing prasadam in their hands in Kulwant Hall. This went on for some time, and then the prasadam distribution got over. He Comes to Swami. Swami looks at him and then Swami says, "What did you do?" He said, "Swami, I have distributed prasadam." Then Swami looked at him and said, "Prasadam?" He said, "Yes, Swami. Swami, your grace, I have given it." Then Swami asked him, "Did you look at their face? Did you differentiate?" He said, "No, Swami. Everyone who stretched their hands, I placed it there." Swami said, "Grace, divine grace is also like that. It does not differentiate between whether you are a Sikh, whether you are a Muslim, whether you are short, whether you are fat, whether you're a doctor, whether you're an engineer, does not differentiate on anything. If you need me, if you stretch your hand, you deserve me, you get me." Kada? Understood? All of us, I was stunned. Simple prasadam distribution was used to teach us such a profound lesson. All that you need to get him is to need him. That's all. That is only deservedness that we will need. And you have his grace. Every aspect. I remember one more classmate
Lovely,
who was once
lovely.
finishing his food, and he tells me uh, he got up, and Swami came up to him. He was holding the plate. Swami came up to him, and there were nine rice particles left, nine rice grains. And Swami looked at him and said, "Have you chanted Brahmarpanam before eating?" He said, "Yes, Swami." All of us chanted together. And Swami pointed to each grain and said, "One Brahma, two Brahma, three Brahma, four Brahma, five, six, seven, eight, nine Brahmas you're wasting. How can you?" And this boy was standing. For us, after that interaction, every rice grain is Brahma. That is what he taught us. And that it is just a used plate, and the boy is going for washing his hand, and that is what a great guru is all about. Every instance, every object, every conversation becomes a tool in his hand to drive home a deep lesson. And I think we should just be receptive to the lesson that he's teaching us,
It's amazing.
and we learn immensely.
Amazing. Whatever you look at, Swami is different from everything. Okay. So third part. I think this is another fantastic portion. Nirankar and Chitta Shuddhi and its importance. Then Ram talks about that how do you the effects of ahankara and how you should get rid of it, and the importance of Chitta Shuddhi and the idea of you. Raju, I'd like you to open this discussion. This is a very
Yes, brother.
beautiful aspect.
I just cannot stop recollecting this beautiful instance of Dr. Hawkins, where he realizes his body is sick. Dr. Hawkins is a very famous kinesiologist doctor. He is world renowned, and he, at the age of 33, in fact, the beautiful books that he wrote. Force versus Power is one such beautiful book, where he recollects that at the age of 33, he contracted a deadly disease, mortal disease, and he's going to pass away, die in few more days. And one evening, he just sits and looks up at the sky and says, "If there is any divine power that can help me, I welcome it to help me." And then he closes his eyes, and then a thought develops in him, and he ruminates over his life. He ruminates all the actions that he has done, and that is when he realizes that he has been the obstruction for the flow of divine grace. He was the obstruction for the flow of divine grace, which at the when we read it for the first time, it doesn't make sense. But as we ruminate, and he tells us, the reader, that after that he used every waking moment to ensure that he was not an acting as an obstruction to the divine grace to flow. And he says within few days the disease disappeared, and then he becomes a conduit to divine grace such a way that this person who was running a simple clinic goes on to become world renowned doctor. 25 branch hospitals were opened under his name, and thousands of patients were treated, and patients would come to him with deadly diseases. He would not talk to them, he would just look at them, and he says, "The divine in me, I was just a witness that actually the divine in me flowed through me, and it touched that person who was at the receiving end, and all that needs to be communicated was done." And that is when it struck me that the prayer that you read out in the beginning, that when Why did Swami, that was a prayer that Swami himself wrote. Why did Swami choose to put that line, "Oh Lord, let me be an instrument to work for thee"? And he said, I used to always think it is make me an instrument. It is not, but it is let me be an instrument. Let me be. Let me be an instrument. Instrument, what does the instrument do? It allows the one who is holding it to perform the act ceaselessly and beautifully. It actually does not have its own entity. Imagine you're holding a knife. A doctor is holding a knife, and the knife begins to think on its own. If it thinks that maybe I should not cut this part, I should cut that part, imagine the confusion that the doctor would have. I think each one of us have we being we as an individual identity, as this Ranganath Raju, I tend to think with that identity that is created because of my past vasanas, because of all the circumstances in life, because of all the interactions that I had and my limited personality. I begin to think that I am an individual entity and I should act on my own. It's like the knife thinking on its own in the doctor's hand, and it creates all the confusion. That identity part, I think, is what is ahankara, is what Swami is referring to, or Ramachandra is referring to.
See, we have mentioned here the idea of you is the obstruction,
Yes.
and maybe it's a language issue. I'm sure Bhagwan have also identified that, when we say, Swami, I have this problem, it says, I is the problem.
Yes, in yes.
So when you say, I have a problem, it says, I is the problem. So there is no problem then I. So, but how can you express without I? And that is the dilemma which everybody has. So here he's saying the ahankar part which we are talking about is is of course the body consciousness which comes from there. But what Bhagwan has taken a one step forward is that even the concept of that I-ness itself is the obstruction. That when you say,
Hmm.
Swami, I am your devotee or I am your servant, problem, you know, how would you explain it further?
Yes, in fact, yes. I recollect when you mentioned. I recollect this funny incident where this boy was, my classmate was actually after Vedam, he was taking Padma Namaskar, and he tells Swami that, Swami, I offer myself to you. And Swami said, you are the problem. I is the problem. He said, Nupura problem. And we never understood what this boy started crying. He went to sort of depression. I remember distinctly Swami patting him and say, Swami is not angry with you. That immature mind, that kiddish mind never understood what Swami is referring to. That I, when you say that I offer myself, you have an idea of yourself. That idea that I am so and so, and I am offering to you. I mean, what are you? What that idea of you is actually construction, mental make of you, which is temporal, which is imperfect, which is strewn with lot of imperfections, and that is what is creating all the problems. And as you had mentioned that when you say without I, then it becomes very difficult. What is it that the entity is all about? And we have examples, living examples. Why is it that Swami says that every student should be taught itihasa, that is Ramayana and Mahabharata? It is not without a scientific reason. We have living examples, characters who have exemplified this. If you look at Radha, for example, in Krishna's time, she Krishna comes and tells her that you had last time you had narrated that incident, and Krishna comes and tells that I want to play flute for you. And Radha smiles and says, "Where is this I? Whom are you actually asking to? Whom? Who is it that would listen to your flute? There is nothing else other than Krishna. There is no idea of Radha." And because Krishna insists that that I want to play, that is when Radha agrees and says, "Okay, since you are asking me, you played flute for me." So there is that concept of I, of that individual entity called Radha. It disappeared in Krishna. It dissolved in Krishna. And when that dissolution happens, There is only the divine aspect that Krishna alone exists. And brother, I'm sure you can talk about our great hero from our Ramayana, the great Hanuman.
Hanuman. Yeah, actually, I was reminded of that only because Hanuman's role is amazing in that way. And I'm just forced to think that when we say that Hanuman had a curse to forget his powers, I find that not as a curse, but I find that as a symbolic expression that Hanuman never remembered himself. He was always in the thought and in oneness with Ram that for him to act, he had to be reminded that, hey, you have a body, you have a role to play. Otherwise, he was lost in Ram. And this is the beauty of Hanuman. Is one of the biggest example, or the maybe the probably the only example from that perspective of Vishishta Dvaita, wherein he has, he has always lived at oneness of Ram, and he for acting he was separated from Ram. So when he was, that's why he said, when I am separate, I am dasoham. When I am one with you, I am one with you. So there is nothing, concept is not there. And when you talk about like that, I realize that probably Hanuman was always in that thought because I recall in Ramayan, when we go forward, we learn about it. When Hanuman is searching for Sita, and there is a scene which Swami explains it very beautifully that Hanuman is watching Mother Sita from far, and Ravan enters the scene. And Ravan is he's using some bad words and he's trying to do something to provoke situation. And Hanuman is about to get angry that, okay, I must intervene and save Mother. At that time, all the Rakshasis get up and they support. And then Ravan's wife, Mandodari himself, comes and counters Ravan and takes him. So Hanuman again starts smiling at himself and he says, oh Lord, how foolish of me to think that I am doer, that I have to protect Mother. You have already placed people in the job. So thank you for allowing me to observe and watch this drama of yours. See, what a realized soul to look like that. And then there's another explanation of Bhagavan that, when Hanuman is, he has to burn the Lanka. So Hanuman is thinking like, okay, I have to burn the Lanka. And when they catch Hanuman and tie the cloth around his tail and put oil, and again he smiles and he thinks that, hey Lord, look your drama. You you wanted me to burn the Lanka. You wanted the Lanka to burn through me. Now, if I had to think how to get cloth, how to get oil, then light, then jump, you have done everything. You only got these people of Lanka only to bring cloth for me, tie me up, put the cloth around me, and put oil and put fire. So you have done everything. So when you look at it like that, then you realize that Hanuman actually was in that supreme oneness all the time, that in spite of things happening through him, he never acknowledged them as his doing. So, from Hanuman's perspective, he was always one with Ram. And that is why, probably, when he was not jumping the ocean and Jambavant and others had to come and remind him, Hanuman, you have a body, you have a work to do, man. So, Hanuman gets up and takes his name and jumps off. So, look at the scenarios that he was always in that constantly in oneness with Ram. And he had to be reminded of the body for people, for because we thought that he needed to be reminded to do the work. But from Hanuman's perspective, whenever the right time comes, the Lord will do it. And he was just available. So when I think of this and I realize that Swami also used to say the same thing, I don't need ability of yours, capability of yours. I just need your availability. If you are available for me, rest I will take care. So only thing he expected the one step from his devotee was availability. Do we give time for Lord? And if we are available, then he'll take care. So we have to do nothing. We just have to be available that okay, I'm free for you, Lord. Do whatever you want. And then he flows. And that's why Bhagavan used to explain it very beautifully. He said, imagine that whole infinite cosmic energy, you want him to come and speak through you, or talk through you, or work through you. How narrow and a cheap version it is. That why should the Lord use this body to talk? Does he not have a better bodies? You know? So imagine that concept itself is flawed. When you say, Lord, speak through me, through you is a big problem because there is a through me is a problem. So when he expects is different. So when I hear Swami, he says, let just be free like a flute and I will blow. There's nothing inside required. I will create the holes, I will blow it, everything I'll do. So we don't need to do something that, okay, I'm Swami, I'm now standing here, you come and speak through me. See, that itself is a flawed approach towards the Lord because now we are restricting him to speak through this feature of what is the concept of me, as you are telling. But if the me is gone, then he will flow, limit. Then we become part of that cosmic flow of energy. What do you think?
Yes, brother. As in fact, beautifully explained. In fact, when one of the brothers had mentioned about Yajnavalkya speaking about Aham Brahmasmi, Swami immediately cut him and said, that is also not right. When you say that Aham Brahmasmi, so there is that Aham and there is that Brahma. It is I am Brahma, which means there is still that I. So that is not right. And Swami said, Nenu Nene Aham. That is what each one of us should evolve to. When Rama is saying that you should, every sadhaka should aspire for that nirahankar stage. This is that I, the concept of I should be chipped away daily. And there are lives. So, for example, if you look at the way in which Hanuman has evolved over time, it is not that suddenly Hanuman reached the stage. No, 9 10 months when the rainy season happened, Hanuman would serve Rama every day. He would go and sweep the floor of Rama. He would carry food for Rama. That's where the bond between, apparent, the physical bond between the Lord and servant is built. Very subtly but very powerfully, Ramana is telling us that serving the Lord or serving service or seva is the first step, foremost step in this direction. When you do that, eventually the concept of I, slowly, steadily through various means, it gets chipped away. And even without we realizing, even without our knowledge, as Hanuman says, on the banks of on the shores of the ocean, when he's about to jump, he says, I do not know whether I'll be able to jump or not. But Rama will take me across. There is no concept now of Hanuman. And even when he jumps and reaches the other side, it seems he looks back and says, did I do this? Because it was Rama who did it. That I is gone and Hanuman has become limitless Hanuman. From a monkey, he has become a god who is worshipped by thousands. I think that I is, as you said, is the issue that we should be aiming at.
I think is this concept. It's very interesting because the moment for example, like somebody's writing, if you believe that everything is done by the God Himself, then where does the ego exist? So the fact is that the moment I think that the God exists, that I think the God is doing through me, is the problem. Because the moment you realize that God is doing through me, then the thought will not be there. Then I believe it will not be there. Then you will be silent and things will work. But as long as there is a thought that I am allowing God to work through me, or whatever happens through me is because of God, that that thought itself is a confusion. So it is a baby. That's why Bhagwan always used to say that these are all baby steps. So like one boy asked also Swami this question in our alumni meet. He asked this question actually, that Swami, if I am also God and if I am also free, then why am I suffering? Then why this confusion? Then Swami said to him, you know it, but you have not realized it yet. And the moment you realize it, the confusion will end. So the whole journey of our sadhana is the process of knowing this, realizing this truth that now we know. So there are millions who even don't know that I am God. So because of Bhagwan's grace, that all of us are at that level today, that we can logically say that I know I'm God. But have we realized it? That is the next journey. And that is where all these sadhanas, all these activities are required. But
Yes,
the
brother.
moment you realize it, then the concept itself will not come. Like Swami said very beautifully one day, no, about that love. Do you love me? And the boy said, yes, Swami. He said that because you said it, you don't love me. Because if you really loved me, you'll be lost in the love. Just because
Absolutely.
you acknowledged love, that shows that you still don't love me. So the
Beautiful.
moment I say that Swami is working through me, that means he's not working through me. Because I have not reached that stage. Because once he is working, then I don't exist. And that I-ness is gone, and that is where the stage is. So it is like that drop merging the ocean. So before it merges, I can talk about it, but after it merges, there's nothing to talk about it. So as long as we are able to justify it and say that the Lord is doing, or I speak through me, and all that, that thought itself shows that I have not reached.
Absolutely.
Is
I
that
just
so?
one incident comes to my mind, brother, where before speech I had told Swami that Swami, please speak through me. And what was, because it shook me for many days and took a lot of time to get an understanding of what the Lord was referring to. Immediate response of Swami was Nammakam ledra niku. You don't have faith. I never understood. It never made sense to me when I was saying, Swami, speak through me. Ideally, the as a human mind, it should have been, yeah, I will speak through you, bless you, whatever. But he said, Nammakam ledra niku. You don't have faith. And many months later, I ended up reading Karna Shri's one of the interaction with Swami, where he would go to Swami and he would look at Swami and say, Swami. That's all. And Swami would look at him before his speech. He would just tell Swami, and Swami looks at him, and then he goes and speaks. Now, Karnashri to some of the devotees, he later explained that, yes, what is it that you go and tell Swami? He tells, when I say, and that is when it struck me, that when I say that Swami speak through me, I am expecting that the Lord will not speak through me. That me is asking the Lord to do something with a doubt that he may not do it. Now, now and there is that is happening because there is that concept of me, that me thinks that there are occasions where the Lord failed, there are occasions where the Lord did, so there is a probability of the Lord not doing it, and hence I'm taking an insurance assurance that please don't fail this time. That is where that neeku namakan లేదు. You don't have faith. On the contrary, when Karnashri goes and tells Swami, there is nothing else because there is no me. Karnashri, the identity of Karnashri is not there. All that he's saying is, all that exists is only you. And I don't need to tell you. It is very foolish of this mind to think that Lord will not speak to you, speak through you. If you can conceive the Lord who is the creator of you, he would have seen all the possibilities. And that is where the aspect of faith, and why I'm saying that is Hanuman exemplifies that aspect, that complete faith. Look at the faith when someone in the court questions him, you speak so much of, you gloat so much of Rama being part of you. Would your hair He said, yes, even my strand of hair resonates. And he pulls out the strand of hair and it is resonating the Lord's name. That faith, then it tears open his chest and Rama is there. Rama, the faith that Rama is with me, he has come because there is no concept of Hanuman. The idea of Hanuman chipped away the idea of Hanuman, and all that remained was only Rama. In fact, it was Rama, as someone beautifully put, Hanuman was nothing but Rama in action. It was actually Rama who was walking through Hanuman.
Lovely, lovely. I like that statement. Rama in action was Hanuman. That's a good thought, yeah. Wonderful. Okay. And all these things, then you realize the Chitta Shuddhi becomes a very small element then. Because the
Absolutely, brother.
moment you are into that I-ness concept is gone, then Chitta Shuddhi is very natural outcome. But it is so important for us to work on all of these areas. So let's pray and move on. Okay, the next one is Trishna. Trishna, Lord Ram has spent a lot of time and a full chapter on Trishna actually. He talks about it as the most, crucial. I would say it's a very important aspect. He says this is the worst problem, and unfortunately, as he says, it is inevitable. As a human body, as long as we have the body consciousness, the Trishna is part of it. And what is Trishna? If I have to explain that Trishna, in a simple definition, so it can be defined as an unsatiated desires, a desire which is not fulfilled, which can, so like people who have got tons of desires, and anybody for that matter, we all have these problems that when we look at things, we always like, you have million, you want 10 million, you have one meal, you want 10 meals. It's like the continuous chase of unsatiated desires is Trishna. So this is the element which Lord Ram has very beautifully described, and seriously raised this concern for an aspirant, that is the most dangerous attribute and cannot be removed as long as we have Deha Vimana. That means as long as we have this body consciousness, this Trishna factor, the unsatiated desire, will remain.
Swami
Raju,
tells beautiful story of this Trishna, brother, as to how it weaves an unending bond. There is that sannyasi who left the world. He was staying naked and he was doing tapas. And one night he felt a bit cold. He wanted to cover at least his private part. So he got a piece of cloth. He bound that cloth around his lower waist, and next day he realized that the cloth was bitten by a rat. Now he wanted to ensure that the cloth stays safe. So he wanted to get away from the rat's problem. So he gets a cat to kill the rat. Now the cat goes hungry. So he wants to ensure that the cat is strong. So he goes and he gets milk for the cat. Now the milk is not available on a daily basis. So to ensure that the milk supply is available all the time, he buys a cow. He gets a cow. Now, when the cow comes, milk is on steady basis, but it leaves lot of dung and it needs lot of attention. So he feels that a man cannot take care of a cow well, so he gets a lady to take care of the cow. And now the lady comes alone, so she needs protection, she needs uh, uh, help and support, so he ends up marrying the lady, and he conceives children through the lady. This sannyasi, who a naked sannyasi who went to the forest, all that started was that one simple desire of covering himself in the cold with a piece of cloth. That simple desire of covering himself with a piece of cloth has weaved this entire chain of events, and he becomes from sannyasi, becomes a grasta. And Swami says that is the nature of desire. Desire leads, one leads to another, and another leads to another. That is why Swami says it is unsatiating. And the genesis of desire is, as Swami beautifully points out in discourse when he says, I created myself to love myself. Now that to love myself, that actually was the desire, which is basically the duality. Or when do you desire something? When you have a feeling that you are not full, when you feel that you lack something, that is when you desire something, because you don't have it. If you have something, you don't desire it. So desire comes from basically duality, which in essence is nothing but a reflection of your ignorance. And Swami says that's how the ignorance or duality is the basis, is the genesis for this desire. And he emphatically states in the discourse, this Trishna, this desire will last as long as your body lasts, as long as life lasts in you. So it is not possible to win over desires. In fact, I remember one senior devotee, a very prominent industrialist, he asking Swami, he said, Swami, please remove desires from me. And Swami said, no, I will not remove desire. I will leave little bit of desire in your heart. And I said, Swami, why is it? Swami said, if I take away all the desires, you would not even desire God. You would not even desire moksha. That little bit of desire is required even to desire the ultimate state. So, which means what essentially Swami was indicating is it depends on the sadhaka to use the desire. Desire is an aspect of creation. Now, just like the surgeon that uses the knife to eliminate a tumor and a killer uses a knife to kill someone, it is the mind of the sadhaka which can use desire to attain Lord, to attain world. Unfortunately, if the desire is used to attain the world, it is an endless cycle. It goes on and on. But if the desire is used to attain the Lord, Atma Jnana, and Swami says the minute there is that darshan of Atma Jnana or darshan of Atma or the Jnana of Atma emerges in yourself, the desire is dead. You don't desire anything. Like the state of Radha, where Krishna himself is asking Radha that I want to do something for you, please tell me. And Radha says, I don't have any desire. Because she has seen what needs to be seen. Is it not, brother? Do you agree?
Yes, 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 completely, completely. No doubt about it. I wish, we could experience this stage of eyelessness, Trishna. But as you said, the desire is good, but Trishna is at level higher than desire.
Yes.
Trishna is like when you can't have any boundaries to it. And I guess that is why Bhagwan gave us the solution, because he gave a solution of sealing on desire. Sealing on desire is a very beautiful concept which reminds us that you cannot control desires. You cannot kill desires completely. So it is not killing of desires, it is not stopping the desire, it is sealing on desire. So which also shows that, with our discriminatory power bestowed on us, can we put boundaries? Can we put a certain kind of an, restricted zone that within this I will entertain my desires. And the moment it crosses that boundary, I will stop it. So to fight Trishna, as long as Bhagwan says that, and Ram says, you cannot avoid it till you have Deha Vimana, which is a body consciousness. But here Bhagwan is giving you solution also, that how can you restrict the impact? by practicing sealing on desires. So if we take that, if we take from that approach, I find sealing on desires a very good concept for Trishna to look at it. What do you think?
Yes, brother. As in fact, and Swami beautifully explains that where do you start? Swami gives a practical, implementable solution. The greatness of the Lord is He breaks down complex subjects into simple, implementable ideas, and He gives such practical remedies that anyone with a bit of interest can actually follow and succeed. And where does the ceiling on desire starts? He says, don't waste food, don't waste money. All that is in, he says, start with all those things that are in your control first. So don't waste food, don't waste money, don't waste time, don't waste energy. These are the four things that Swami says. If you start this, yeah, ceiling on desires is you are having a ceiling on desires. But the beauty of it is when you begin to implement the depth of the Lord's instruction reveals itself. When you say don't waste food, it actually begins. In fact, we as a family, we started doing it, and we realized that the definition of food, as you practice it daily, it begins to evolve. You suddenly realize that food is not just the physical food that we eat only through mouth. All that goes through into us in our senses is actually food. And don't waste money. And what Swami is referring to, wastage of money is wastage of opportunities, wastage of the resources, and the definition of it begins to expand. And we suddenly realize that the Lord has actually given a manual for our living. In Prashnottara Vahini, in Sutra Vahini, there is a sentence where Swami says, at the end of it, Swami says, the greatest seva that you can do to me is to take one of my teachings, just one, and live it, and follow it and live it. That is the greatest seva that you can do. I think when Swami is referring to the ceiling on disease, all that we need to do is probably pick up just one and then we practice it. We realize the beauty of it. And probably Rama is pushing us towards that eliminate Krishna. And this Ramachandra, Lord Sai Rama, has given us a practical manual as to how do we overcome this Krishna.
Very nice. Let's look at it further now. Okay, the true outlook towards the body, this temporal filth, body is just an instrument. So this is another aspect which an aspirant must look into it, is your approach towards the body. I think this is a very interesting area when you look at how do we treat our body. Because most of the time when people talk about body from a spiritual angle, we always try to, use very negative words towards it, like it's temporal, it is filthy, it has got open the body and you will only find flesh, blood. So there is nothing good about it, it's decaying. So we have that approach towards the body, and that is actually the truth, physical truth of the body. But there is another element to that which we have to balance it. See, this approach, which Lord Ram mentions in the beginning, the aversion towards the world is required for moving forward. But the beauty of the whole concept here is that with each element that you are expressing your aversion is there for a purpose. So when you talk about the aversion towards your body, it is because we don't want unnecessary and over attachment towards the body, that you spend half an hour, 1 hour in just fixing your hair. You are worried about how the skin tone is. See, those things becomes excess, and for that there is an aversion element, concept of aversion comes in. But on the second part, if you look at it, the body is also considered to be devo deva devalaya. It is the home where the atma resides. So it's a temple of God, and it is an instrument through which a soul can move its journey forward and reach the higher states of being. So the same body which has to be looked upon, which needs to be looked upon as temporal, filthy, decaying, is also to be considered as the temple of God. That's why even the dead bodies, we offer our gratitude and respect that they resided the Lord once. So we respect it. So imagine this beautiful contrast which Ram is pointing it out, that how we should understand life. So on one hand, we have to develop detachment, aversion. On another hand, we have to develop gratitude and respect and love for the same thing. And the mixture of this is the way we live in this world as detached attachment we were talking about in the previous episodes. So the whole concept of how to live a life, I think, can be learned from here also. It's so beautiful that
Yes, but I
how
think
do we approach our
this.
body.
Yes, brother. As Swami explains, if we take a cross, if we take a balance which has like two sides, and one side you have this respect towards body as an instrument, and other side you have this aspect that body is everything, uh, that there's attraction to the world, and the in between indicator, I think, is Trishna. Now, when it crosses a certain level, when Trishna becomes uncontrolled, when the desire reaches the stage of Trishna, that is when body begins to appear as an important element in one's life. It gains the most prominent position where you are worried about your skin tone, where 80% of your thoughts are hovering around how I look, the beauty of the body, the physicality of the body, the physicality of the existence. And when the Trishna remains at a just a simple desire level, a desire to exist, a desire to reach the supreme consciousness or whatever, that is when body becomes an instrument. I think that is where Lord is Rama is telling us that this balance should be very finely maintained. When you cross over from this stage, this aspect of desire to Krishna, to unsatiated desire, the how does that happen? That happens because of that ahankara. That ahankara is the root cause which transitions desire to Krishna, and it creates all the problem. Now, very subtly but very powerfully, Lord is indicating that remain always in the stage that this body is just a temporal instrument that is given to you. But when you have ahankara, that creates this Trishna, basically the identity, creates a sense of desire, which leads you to this entire chain of attachment, and you get caught in the world. The spider of the world weaves its web all around you. As, in one of the Upanishads, it's beautifully described that the spider of desire weaves its entire world around you till it consumes you completely. I think that is what Rama is very powerfully but subtly is indicating to all of us, to every aspirant.
Fantastic. I think more and more, if you like, go into these things, you will get new perspectives and new insight into all of this element. But it is nice to keep as a reminder that this is what Lord Ram starts the whole concept, that these are the elements which are required for every aspirant. And then he talks about the challenges and defects of different phases of life, the childhood, the youth, and everything. So here also he's trying to, kind of give you a feeling that what is the big deal about it? When you're a child, you can't even speak. You have to be dependent on everybody. You cry. You can't even, take care of yourself. So he is talking about every age has its own issues and own problems. So if you look at it, see the way what we talked about, the aversion towards the life is required, and then gratitude is required. So now he's taking us of the body, of our phases of life, and other areas, in which he's reminding us that how do we create aversion and how do we create gratitude. and that is the attitude of an aspirant. So here he talks about the challenges of every stages of life. In youth, what challenges you have; in childhood, what you have; as a grihastha, what you have. So he really makes it sound very ugly. That how can you be attracted towards that life? When you have so much of problems, and then at the same time he says this is the beauty of human body, and you can take it from there.
Yes, brother. In fact, I'm reminded of a poem which Swami used to quote quite often, where Swami beautifully encapsulates this problem being an eternal companion in life. He says, Pututaya oka chinta, taking birth itself is a problem. Bhumi ninduta chinta, being on earth is a problem. Samsara muka chinta, the samsara is a problem. Chavu oka chinta, death is a problem. Balyam antayu chinta, entire childhood is a problem. Vardhakya muka chinta, your teenage, your being a teenager is a problem. Jeevinchudu oka chinta, being alive is a problem. Chedupu chinta, even getting spoiled is a problem. Karmal anniyu chinta, all karmas is a problem. Kashtambuloka chinta, your difficulties are a problem. Santasamuka chinta, your happiness is a problem. Chinta, vinta chinta, even something new is also a problem. Prapanchakamu chinta, the entire world is a problem. Prakrutanta chinta, entire nature is a problem. Santasamuka chinta, happiness is a problem. Vinta chinta, this is a strange chinta. But Sarvachintalu Bapedu Sai Bhakti. But it is the Bhakti to Sai alone is the remedy to all these chintas. Gonudu Ikanaina Janular Korkimir, at least now take up that devotion. Inta kannanu వేరేది ఎరుకపరుతూ సాధు సద్గుణ గణ్యులవు సభ్యులార. What else can I tell you to this August gathering? It is a poem that Swami would often quote. He says everything is a problem, but the remedy to the problem is the devotion to the Lord. If you hold on to Sai, all these problems get washed away.
See, the same thing, we again come back to that. So basically, the whole, if I really have to summarize it, it appears that with Atmagyan, everything is fine. Without Atmagyan, everything is a problem. And for
Yes,
Atmagyan, you need Guru and you need Sai. So if you don't have Atmagyan, at least hold on to the feet of the Master, and rest, everything will be taken care of. Without that, everything will be a problem. Childhood is a problem, youth is a problem, adulthood is a problem, body is the problem, everything is a problem. But with the Lord, with that Atmagyan, the same thing becomes beautiful, worth living experience. Interesting, really interesting thought. I think
yes,
Swami's each sentence of Bhagavan, each prose, it just summarizes everything and brings it together so nicely. And Vashishta in Ram Gita again, he talks about the influence of genders, the impact of old age, and the impact of time. Here also he explains it very beautifully, like how time is the biggest thing that it controls us. And then he talks about Vairagya. So can you imagine all of this is part of Vairagya? I would say, I would guess,
yes,
in a separate section. And he explains Vairagya to be very important aspect of life.
absolutely. Brother. I think all these are driving us towards this Vairagya. Now, when we think deeply on even one of these aspects, it leads us to the concept of Vairagya. Like, uh, uh, I remember a very profound incident that Swami had mentioned once, where in Buddha's life, when Gautam Buddha, when he goes out, he looks at all those people who are suffering in the old age. And then Swami says the thought develops in him that is this suffering not avoidable? Is this suffering and people die, which we all know, but the concept where some Rama is talking about old age, and he says is this suffering not avoidable, and then he goes and he meditates, and we know the story where he realizes himself and he himself becomes old. and he is on that last day when he is leaving his life, when he is leaving his, I'm sorry, when he is leaving his body, the last final day, the old Buddha, now the Buddha's body has become very old, 80, 82 years old. It is not able to walk. Now it is lying down under the tree, and the entire town is has assembled to send off Buddha. And in that moment, one old man raises his hand and says, Buddha, it's, I remember very clearly Swami narrating this in Purnachandra. Very few Purnachandra sessions we as a batch got, and one of those Swami is narrating this and says, he raises his hand, this old man raises his hand and says, Buddha, you are old, I am old. But why is it that there is so much peace in your face? You are dying, at least I have the hope of living. Why is it that you're not scared? Why is it that you're so happy? Why is it that there is so much contentment in you? And why is it that I am suffering? Why is it that I don't have? Why is it that I am afraid that I might die any moment? Why is it that I am afraid of death? What is it that differentiates between us? And Buddha calls him, just signals him, and he comes to him, and he whispers in person's ear. He says, "You are God." That knowledge is the differentiating factor. You are God. The old man is, he. Swami goes on to explain that that is the only difference. That as you said, that atmajnana, that realization that you are the supreme self, it kills away everything. The old Buddha in body is free, is contented, is happy, but this human in his body in the old age is ripen with lot of problems, with anxiety, with diseases. And that is where Ramachandra is very forcefully driving us to think that how do you want to be in that old age? Do you want to suffer? Do you want to be diseased, or do you want to be happy? Do you want to be contented? I think it is up to each one of us as to how do we want to end up in that stage of old age. One day or the other these bodies will become old. It is inevitable, but how do we want to age is up to us.
Can you imagine that? It's such a powerful thing. Brother Saurabh has asked a question here. Can you say a bit more about the temporal dimension of I-ness? Can the I-ness be cut instantly, or does it need so-called evolution or practice over time? Brother, I wish we could do that, but I guess it is a. It's. What do you think, Raju? I feel it is a constant, perpetual activity.
Yes,
But
brother.
when the time is right, when you are right, then it seems to be an instant. When they say
Right.
Ramana Maharshi got enlightenment instantly, but we don't know how many lives he must have practiced to reach that stage of instant realization. So it requires a lot of practice. I'm sure about it. What do you think, Raju?
Yes, brother, completely agree. I don't think it is going to happen instantly. It is not. It might appear instant because there would have been years of practice behind it, sadhana behind it. That is what Swami says is sadhana, the real dhana. Dhana is that which accompanies, which gives you resources, which gives you ability to overcome difficulties, and says, what is the true dhana? This dhana, the dhana of the world would go away after this life. After this life, you may not carry this dhana. But Swami says, sadhana, that dhana which remains with you all throughout lives, not this life, but across, is actually this act of eliminating the I-ness. That is nothing but spirituality. Swami says, keeping away animality, being human, and being evolving divine qualities is spirituality, and that is nothing but this eliminating I-ness. We might, as Swami said, as Swami indicated in Sealing on Desires, probably we should start with things that are in our control, where a simple thing like one of my classmates very beautifully told me this morning. He said, Raju, I have also thought about this many times, and he has a habit. He said, I have developed a habit of whenever I write in the night, his first step is very simple step. He said, I journal my entire day. Now, whenever I write, I am counting the number of times I have used I. I make a conscious effort to reduce this I. And I loved it because it's a simple step that he took, but he says it is having a profound impact. Over time, he realized that his entire notes, when he consciously begins to write without the usage of I, it's an act. He says it's an act of grace. I realize that it is just act of grace of the Lord, and I am ending my each day with immense gratitude. Probably we can start small and achieve big.
I like this approach, because in our speech also, I recall when I wrote my first book, and the first feedback I had given that manuscript to read for people to get an idea. One of senior persons, who was a principal of the school in Toronto, Mr. Pillai, he mentioned to me that he said, Avi, you have, even though you're writing it confidently, but there is too much of I in your writing. And it never struck me. And he said that gives a different impression to reader. So if you can modify your style of writing, and that is where, Raju, I learned that lesson of how do you write and express yourself without playing with I. So instead of saying I did it, how can I say the same thing in a different way, which conveys I did it, but I don't need to say I every time in the beginning. So just by modifying that, exactly what your friend has done, I realize that, and now we are very beautifully. You said that it could be a baby step to start practicing how to delete I-ness from the system. So rather than saying I experienced it, I did that, I was there, I have experienced it. So how do I rephrase myself? Even the thought itself would be a step towards deleting I-ness, isn't it?
Yes, brother. Yes.
So I think it's a very good thought that you presented, that how do we work on I-nessness? Yeah, ultimately, the feeling, like example I gave was Swami saying, "Do you love me?" Instantly, you say, "Yes, Swami," and he caught there and he said, "Since you said it, you don't do that." So the
Don't act.
problem is that requires a really an in-depth conviction out of experience to remain in that state forever. So to reach that stage, we have to practice. And I think when we go to the Rama Gita point, and there we'll see how Rama starts the whole discussion, and that will be an interesting aspect when we touch upon it, because there he will explain how to live that way. So today we are talking about it. It sounds very difficult in a way because we do not have the clarity in our head about how do we act without I-ness, because that concept itself is a problem. But I'll give you an example. It happened with Ramana Maharshi also, and the question was asked that, Ramana, how do I keep focus on God and engage in the world? And Ramana Maharshi was quiet. We know his nature was he would speak very less, and he was quietly sitting. And at that moment, somebody entered with some a bowl of paisam or something, a dish which the devotee who had asked this question liked very much. So Ramana called him near and he said, "You like this dish, right?" He said, "Yes, Maharaj." And Ramana said to him, that, "Okay, now look at my eyes. The moment I blink my eye, you start eating. And the moment I blink again, you should stop eating." So imagine a fun, and I can imagine Swami sitting and doing that to us, how fun it will be and how playful environment that could be. And imagine Ramana Maharshi telling the devotee that, okay, now you start eating the moment I blink, and you stop eating the moment I blink. He said, "Yes." And he starts staring at Ramana, focused, and Ramana Maharshi blinks. And he starts eating and constantly looking at Ramana Maharshi, and he's eating. And suddenly, when Ramana blinks again, he stops. So the idea, he thought that he was supposed to eat as much as he could while looking at Ramana. And Ramana said, "Did you eat?" He said, "Yes." "How was the taste?" He said, "Very nice. It's tasty." He said, "While you were eating, where was your focus?" He said, "I was looking at your eyes, because that's what you told me, to look at your eyes." He said, "By do the job of eating and you experience the taste, this is how you are supposed to live in the world. Your focus should be on God all the time, because you never know when He will blink and your time is out. Okay? So the blink is your birth and you blink is your dead. So you don't know when He will blink. So you have to be focused on the Lord and continue doing your chores of life. I feel that's a very beautiful example of how do we live with, as Swami would say, head in the forest, hand in the society. So I think he has given us very beautiful concepts and strategies to live. And
Yes,
this
brother.
example of Ramana enhances that beauty. That look
Absolutely.
how we can live. And in that process, you don't exist. Because now you are not, you are just lost in that being with the Lord. Probably like Hanuman, you're just there and you don't know that you are there. You are, things are happening through you and you don't even are aware of it. See, like when Bhagwan says, if you do a seva, service, and you remember that you have done service, then you have not done the service.
You're not done.
Isn't it? So it's a
Absolutely.
catch 22, like it revolves around it. So you do service and you forget that you have done service, then you have done service. And the moment you remember that you have done it, you have not done it. So this is that he wants us to really get rid of I. And for that, he has given us baby steps, which I think from Bhagavad Gita's perspective, if you look at it, he teaches you karma, then nishkam karma, then karma sannyasa, then bhakti. So if you go through that journey, there also you realize that how he's breaking up the I-ness so that you can reach a stage of karma sannyas, wherein the actions are happening but you don't know because you are not doing anything. And that realization comes when you are in the constant awareness that trigunas are moving and they are doing things. Isn't that beautiful, Raju?
Yes, brother. Yeah, I remember Swami mentioning this incident where Arjuna, who fought so ferociously, so valiantly in the war of Mahabharata, people would say that he could fire non-stop for 24 hours. He and the speed of his the way in which he would circle his bow is so fast that nobody could actually locate where his bow was. Even to break it, Bhishma was finding it difficult because they were not able to locate where exactly his bow is. He would fire so fast across 360 degrees. So such capable personality was not even able to lift Gandiva after Krishna's physical exit. He was not even able to hold Gandiva. And the dialogue also where Arjuna says the hordes that are the tribal hordes that are coming on him, he says, "You do not know whom are you coming towards to. That you are coming like a moth, fireflies into the fire." And now he is not able to hold the bow. And that time it never made sense to me. And Swami said, Arjunude problem సృష్టించుకున్నాడు. Arjuna himself created the problem. Now I realize what Swami was indicating was the concept of Arjuna. Till then it was Krishna who was actually, his entire focus was on Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. There was no Arjuna. Now the physical exit of Krishna happened, his attention turns toward Arjuna and he became a problem. He became an issue. He is not even able to hold the bow. And brother has asked this question that what are the steps, falters that aspirant might falter? Probably That is what Swami is referring to.
See, Raju, you quoted a very beautiful example, and it again comes down to the same concept of Atmagyan. As long as he knew that Krishna is with me, he was powerful. And the moment he felt Krishna has left me, he became weak.
Okay.
So it is that attachment to the Krishna concept or the God Atmagyan, you are powerful. And without that, you are totally weak. And Suman brother is asking that could you please discuss what happens to an aspirant when he or she falters or fails to meet the ideals? What is the extent of loss? And actually, he's asking us to share real life experience in Swami's physical proximity. Is there, Raju?
Yes, brother. Yeah, I think, but we are out of time. So yes, there are umpteen experiences, and uh, there are instances where many aspirants have fallen from the heights. Like, for example, even our Rama, we are talking about Ramayana. So Swami talks about Vishwamitra himself, the one who was the architect of, in some sense, the mission of Rama. Because without Vishwamitra, there is no Sita, there is no marriage of Rama and Sita. That Vishwamitra faltered so many times. No, he was the one who created that parallel universe, and he gave up. He exhausted spiritual powers. He was the one who ended up marrying Urvashi, created progeny, and again he came back to life. But Swami, in a book, Swami had written this book in 1970s. It is called Divyajnana Deepikalu, in which Swami writes about uh, uh, 30 or 40 saints and sages. And in the introduction, Swami physical personally wrote this introduction and also the stories of the sages, one page for each page. The introduction, Swami says, these stories are being written for each one to ponder upon, that you also might be committing similar mistakes, you also might be going through similar challenges in life. But remember, all these sages and saints have passed through these stages, and they have evolved into the stage of being an ideal human beings with sheer effort and sadhana. To derive that inspiration, I'm writing these stories. As a sum up, and because we're speaking about Ramayana, Vishwamitra himself is the greatest example as to what all he has faltered and where he has fallen to. And in spite of all that, with a sheer effort and determination, he rose back every time he fell, and he became Brahmarshi. At one point, Swami says, when he goes to kill, he plans to kill Vasishta. He hides a dagger, and he's actually hiding behind a bush to kill Vasishta because he has enmity with Vasishta. He's jealous of Vasishta, and Vasishta is sitting and is looking at the moon and the sky. And Swami says, the example of what love can transform even sages. He looks at the moon, bright moon in the sky, and tells his wife that when you look at the moon, don't you feel that it is like the effulgence of Vishwamitra? It is like the face of Vishwamitra. That one comment Vishwamitra hears, and he comes and does Sashtang Namaskar to Vasishta, throws away the dagger and says, I have mistaken you, I am sorry. I do not know that you love me so much. And that, when he prostrates to Vasishta, Vasishta terms Vishwamitra not as Brahmarshi, not as Rajarshi. That is when he quotes Vishwamitra and says, you are Brahmarshi Vishwamitra, get up. And Vishwamitra has tears in his eyes. Why is it that you're calling me Brahmarshi? I have actually come to commit a sin. But he says, it is the same you who gave up those instincts of committing that sin, and with sheer love, you have even that humility to fall at someone's feet and seek forgiveness and my grace. Since you bestowed me that honor of being your guru, I give you that immense grace that you are now Brahmarshi. And Swami ends that story with this passage of Vishwamitra. And from then on, Vishwamitra came to be called as Brahmarshi.
Amazing, yeah? Beautiful. So, Brother Suman, I think time is up, so we can continue the discussion next week. So, you're welcome to share your thoughts and your questions or suggestions, and we love to continue the discussion next week. And I would really, because this area is such a deep area, and whatever studies we do on this will never be able to justify the depth of Lord Ram or Bhagwan. So we welcome any one of you here to share your thoughts, and please write to us with your feelings. And if you have studied anything of this nature, then we would love to hear from you. So it will be a pleasure. But from our side, we will continue our offering, we'll continue our journey, and we'll pray to Bhagavan that our offerings continue in this manner. Thank you so much. Thank you, Raju brother. So I think we'll close it for today.
Sai Ram Katha.
Sai Ram, everybody. We appreciate it.